I'm John Law, this is Chasing Cars, and this is the new Skoda Octavia in base model 110 TSI Ambition form. Now, while the sporty RS may steal all the headlines, in today's review, we're going to find out whether or not the base model is worth considering. Here in base model, guys, this Octavia, on paper at least, is an absolute bargain at $32,990 drive away, making it cheaper to buy on the road than the smaller Mark 8 Golf with which it shares its MQB Evo underpinnings. So that's an interesting little take, and we'll get to that all in a minute, including talking about the cabin and the boot and the practicality of this car. But first, I want to talk about how this thing looks, because the updated Octavia, I think, looks really good. Perhaps this sort of fridgy, basic, flat white isn't the best look on this car. I'd spend the $770 to get lava blue, which is an amazing color. But overall, it's a very handsome vehicle. Skoda have done a really good job making it look cohesive. It starts with the updated front end. Of course, this is a very new car, only launched in Australia earlier this year. You've got LED headlights with daytime running lights, standard on this base model, which look really crisp and lend it an air of sophistication. You've also got these really confident lines that run the full length of the car to give it that real sort of European look, and then it blends nicely into the liftback's little sharp tail, which looks great. Of course, you can also get this car in a wagon for an extra $1,500, which would be my preference, but you can let me know your preference in the comments section down below. And now we're going to jump into the cabin of this MQB Evo-based 4th generation Skoda Octavia. So straight into the cabin of this car, and I've just got to say, it's amazing what Skoda has managed to do at this price in terms of making this cabin feel premium. Yes, there are some detractors and some things that do give away its price. We'll get to those in a second, but on the whole, it feels really, really solid, premium, and yeah, just a great place to be in general. Now, I'm going to preface this part by saying that unfortunately the Skoda Ambition, the base model car that we're sitting in right now, is actually sold out in Australia currently. It may come back soon, but for the moment the most affordable one you can buy is the Style, which is one up from this guy, gets all the same engine and still gets these very nice cloth seats. Slightly different cloth material in that car, but they are the same seat and they're very comfortable. You have manual adjustment, so height, forwards and backwards, and infinite adjustment for the backrest, and you also get a little manual lumbar adjustment, which is a nice touch which a lot of rivals don't actually offer. As for material quality, it's generally pretty good above the belt line. So you got soft touch up here on the doors, and the material itself looks quite quality. It's not reflective, it's sort of like a kind of wabi-sabi wood plastic finish. I don't know, looks kind of good. You've got a little bit of soft touch up here, and this nice sort of aluminium trim is good. There's a bit of piano black too up here for the volume control. Come back to that in a second. But below the belt line, everything gets scratchy, and down here in the center console, stuff is really scratchy. It's almost like Toyota Hilux level equipment, which is where you start to see how this car is more affordable. But what's pretty impressive is the technology. So unlike the base Golf, which only gets about an 8-inch screen inside and no mats, no floor mats, this car gets floor mats, and it also gets a 10-inch screen. It's crisp, it works well, and it's not too laggy. You also get wireless Apple CarPlay, but you don't get any navigation in this car. You have to go up to the Style for that. And yeah, it works great. There's a couple of annoyances though, mainly being the climate control is controlled through this. And it's got this weird interface. It's laggy. You got a sort of smart AC thing. It's a little bit low contrast. It's one of those things where you think, did this really need to happen? Could we just have had fan speed and climate control here? I think that would have been fine. The next generation, presumably the facelift, will hopefully remedy this with a slightly more high quality looking AC thing. But yeah, you can let me know in the comments section down below what you think of aircon controls being in touchscreens, because as you know, Tom and I and Ponch kind of don't really get on with that. The other great things, 10.25-inch digital driver's display ahead of me here, something you don't get in a lot of this car's rivals, especially $32,990. Really good stuff, Skoda. It's customizable, so you've got a couple of different screens to scroll through. Wireless charging, practicalities-wise, it's really good. You've got decent door bins, and they're flock lined too on this base model car. Yeah, great. They're flock lined in the back as well, so it stops your bottles rattling around. You've also got these clever little touches. You've got a bin here in my driver's door. I've also got a umbrella in the door pocket for me and the passenger. Nice deep center bin. There's not flock lining in here, but there is a little rubber mat. Comfy armrest. But one of the detractors being these tiny little cup holders, which are kind of the size of a takeaway cappuccino cup, but they don't fit a bigger cup like my Keep cup. Ceramic thing doesn't fit in there, and it doesn't fit big water bottles, so that's a little bit annoying, but really that's probably about it. You've also got this interesting design little stubby nub here that Volkswagen's starting to move to. We first saw something like that in the Porsche 992 911, but now it's sort of prevailing across most of their cars, and it does look quite premium, and it works, yeah, pretty well once you get your head wrapped around it. And then finally we come to the steering wheel, which Skoda has absolutely nailed. It's a great size, perforated leather at the top, slightly flattened bottom but without being rude, and it's got these really nice design elements, little cutouts to make it look more visually light, and it feels like a quality item. Yeah, it's really impressive, this Skoda. And plenty of space up here too. The only one other thing I'll point out that's slightly annoying is, for me at 6'2", the armrest on the door, which is soft here, turns to hard just here where my elbow rests. So if I want to be comfortable, I kind of have to contort my arm a little bit, but for anyone any shorter than me, it's probably not going to be much of an issue. And yeah, as I said before, the rest of the package is really impressive. So let's jump in the back seat and see how spacious this car is. Now, I mentioned at the start that the Octavia was about 40 centimeters longer than a Golf with about a 5 centimeter longer wheelbase, and obviously where that pays off really well is in the back seat here. This MQB Evo based car is really spacious. At 6'2" behind my own driving position, I've got good knee room, great toe room, and a decent amount of headroom too. I even have good headroom in the middle seat, though there is a little bit of a transmission tunnel, but at least it's fairly skinny so you can put your legs either side. And it's a very comfortable place to sit. The bench is nicely inclined. It's not like it's preferencing rear boot space too much. It feels like a nicely balanced piece of kit. But there are some big detractors back here, mainly in terms of materials. So up on the doors, very scratchy plastics. This grab handle's scratchy, though you do at least get this nice soft pad on the armrest there. So the actual bits that you touch aren't too bad. And then below that, you get the Flockline door bins, which I already mentioned in the front. And what I forgot to mention in the front, the speaker grills. This car actually has a really decent stereo in this base model trim, and it's something Skoda sort of prides themselves on, is giving good stereos at good prices. What else do we have back here though? You've got pockets behind each seat with their own little smart device pocket here, slightly smaller, so you can pop your phone in there and see any notifications come up. It doesn't have to be in your pocket. You've also got ventilation, a sort of little hole to hold stuff in maybe, and then a little blanking plate where you get USB charging in the upper grades of cars, but nothing in the back for this car, unfortunately. You do, however, have a flip down armrest, and you get deployable little cup holders here, very nice quality feeling item, and you even get this slightly peculiar smart device holder. So you can sort of pop that there, pop your iPad or your iPhone or your Android tablet or whatever in, slide it out, pop it in, and yeah, use it on the move. I don't know, you can do business, get your kids to watch YouTube or whatever. Basically what I'm saying is that Skoda has done a really good job making this back seat work for everyone. It's spacious. I could happily sit back here for a longer road trip, and I've got enough stuff to keep me entertained. Sure, the lack of USB charging is a little bit annoying, but you do get that in upper grade cars, and the big thing is that you get adjustable air vents in the back. Cool, that's the interior of the Skoda Octavia. Let's quickly check out the boot. So we come around to the back of the Octavia. Now, of course, it's available in two body styles, this liftback, which we have here, and the wagon as well. This liftback is probably going to be the less popular option in Australia, and the wagon is frankly going to be more spacious, but I do understand why people like this sort of arrangement. Now, this new updated look for the Octavia is sort of a bit of a blink and you'll miss it styling change at the front, but around the rear, this car looks a whole lot crisper. You've got this really nice, sharp, confident line here, and as a real premium twist on this car, you get animated indicators. It's a really nice little touch that was reserved for premium cars in the Volkswagen group like Audi and Porsche before, but now you can get it on one of the most affordable ones. Crack that boot open, and obviously this car is a hatchback, which is quite practical, and it makes carrying larger items, or loading larger items rather, very easy. And as you can see, we've got all three chasing cars suitcases in here, no problem at all. The total literage is 600 litres. The wagon does add 40 extra litres, but regardless, this is a massive boot for the class, way bigger even than something like a Honda Civic sedan or a Hyundai i30 sedan. Now, if we pull one of these suitcases out, you can also see, or two of these suitcases out rather, you can also see all of these nets, because Skoda is all about this sort of stuff, these clever practicalities. You've got a little flashlight back here and plenty of shopping bag hooks, really beefy ones too. And the good thing is that the Octavia comes with all these features as you see it. You don't have to option any of this stuff at the dealer. Skoda just includes it all for the money, which is great. You also get a space saver spare tire under the floor. And of course, almost didn't mention it, a power tailgate on the base model Octavia. That's pretty cool, I reckon. All right, enough talking about how this car looks and the practicality. Let's take this Octavia out for a little spin on the road. So, what's driving the new Skoda Octavia like? Well, to sum it up, it's really rather good. It feels like a very accomplished vehicle. Classic Skoda solidness and light-footedness to how this car goes about its business, even though this is just sort of the base model. Yeah, it's really impressive. And that's going to start with the engines. So, the Octavia is available with a lot of engines across the world, including a 150 kilowatt plug-in hybrid, but there's only 3 that come to Australia. So there's this one, which is the 110 TSI, which is a pretty familiar unit, and it produces 110 kilowatts of power and 250 newton meters of torque and has a 1.4 litre displacement. It's turbocharged and it's got a really nice mid-range. It feels good, grunty, and pretty adequate for this car really, given that it only weighs about 1,360 kilos or thereabouts. It actually handily motivates it. Now, 0 to 100 times only about 9 seconds, which isn't blistering, but it's up on the move where this car does its best work with its nice meaty torque band. Now, you can also get a more powerful 2-litre turbocharged engine that makes 140 kilowatts of power and 320 newton meters in the limited edition for about just under a whisker under 50 grand. And of course the Octavia RS, which uses the same 2-litre engine but produces 180 kilowatts and 370 newton meters. You can watch Tom's review of that car up there. That really is the headline of the range. But I'm here to tell you that this car feels just as worthy in the range as the RS, even though it may not grab the attention of the headlines. It's a really well polished car. There's an extra little detail that we'll talk about just under the bonnet. I'll just jump outside and show you what I mean with the attention to detail of Skoda. Now, if there's one thing both Tom and me love to see on affordable vehicles, it is the inclusion of gas bonnet struts. You don't need to fiddle around pulling a thingo out and sticking it in some metal like you do in the Mark 8 Golf. And now the gearbox. So unlike most old school VW Group products, this car actually uses an 8-speed torque converter. It's a move we've seen gradually happen over the last sort of 12 to 18 months here in Australia. It's an ASIN unit, and in this car, the actual logic is very well programmed, and it chooses its gears very well in normal drive mode, and in sport mode too. It holds the gear nicely and uses the best part of this car's engine, which is the meaty mid-range torque band, and does rev it out pretty well. You can also take manual control of the paddles, but that's where I come to the one issue with this gearbox, is that it's jerkier than the old DSG. When you're downshifting, it doesn't seem to rev match so well, so it does feel a little jerky and can unsettle the car when you're pushing on and turn it into a corner, and just sort of overloads the front wheels a little bit. And the other thing about it is that when you get on the throttle, you get this slightly auto gearboxy slur, which doesn't feel very Skoda. I'm used to a really crisp response from the DSG, but I think the creep that's built into this gearbox is more natural, and it will really suit more people more of the time, at least in my book. But you can let me know in the comments section down below whether or not you love the DSG. Let's take a quick break from driving the Octavia and talk about its running costs, because this car is seriously fuel efficient. The Volkswagen Group 1.4 litre turbocharged 4-cylinder engine means this car is very efficient. We returned a really impressive 5.8 litres per 100 kilometres over our mixed testing loop, and on the highway you're going to see as low as 4.5 litres per 100. Though around town it will sip a little bit more fuel, maybe 7.5 to 8 litres per 100. Now we've got to talk about insurance. So over the last 12 months, the median budget direct customer paid $900 to comprehensively insure a new Skoda Octavia. Of course, everybody's situation is different, and your premium will vary on things that insurers take into account, such as the make and model of the car, your driving history, and where you garage the car. For servicing, Skoda offers really affordable service packages for the Octavia and all of its models. So for 5 years or 75,000 kilometres, it's only going to cost you $1,400 for all the scheduled maintenance for this Octavia, which is pretty competitive in this marketplace. And maintenance needs to be carried out every 12 months or 15,000 Ks, which puts it at about the middle of the road. So let's get back to driving the Octavia and talking about how this thing handles. Now we're going to talk about the handling of the Octavia, because based on this NQB Evo platform, it's really good. It's fantastic actually. It feels light on its feet due to its fairly light weight, especially for the size class. It has a good front end, decent bite, and then turns in, and when you chuck it in, it pivots quite quickly onto the outside rear tyre. and it just makes this car feel enjoyable to drive on a country road, good levels of grip, and yeah, it's just a well-sorted vehicle without ever being too firm as well. That's one of the big things. It does sometimes feel like it's lacking a little bit of rebound damping at high speeds. Sometimes you feel the body movement just feel a little bit floaty, but on the whole, I think, again, it's definitely suited to the majority of drivers. Obviously, if you want something stiffer, Skoda do offer that with the Octavia RS, but this is just a really nicely polished, European feeling car to drive on the road, and it's a real joy. And the extra wheelbase, that extra 5 centimeters of length, you can really feel it just keeping this car really nice and calm over big imperfections and small bumps as well. Even these 18-inch Perseus alloy wheels, which I think look quite attractive, they don't add extra harshness to this car's ride, really. It doesn't feel like it needs any smaller wheels. It feels like the damping's really sophisticated, and it doesn't feel like you're missing anything. The steering as well feels good. You don't have drive modes to adjust the steering weight or the throttle response or anything like that, but it does all feel quite well measured. And yeah, so the only drive logic you can adjust is on this little stubby nub. Pull it back towards you, you go from drive to sport. There's no adapted dampers or anything like that, but you don't need them because these dampers are really well set up to have a good amount of body roll without ever being too firm and without ever feeling too soft either. And I tell you what, it makes me wonder why Skoda ever thought they would need adapted dampers in any car, because they seem to be able to do a set of passive dampers really well, so why bother making the expense? But anyway, let me know in the comment section down below whether you prefer adaptive or passive damper setup. Now we're going to talk about safety, because this is one of the areas where this Octavia is a little bit lacking. So you do have a good amount of safety assistance systems as standard. So you've got AEB with pedestrian and cyclist detection and stop and go functionality. You've got lane keep assist as well, but it's not the full travel assist IQ Drive program that you can get on the upper grades of this vehicle. It's not quite as good on the old lane trace assist, but to be fair, the adaptive cruise control is very well tuned. You don't get front parking sensors either, which means you don't get front cross traffic alert, or rather junction AEB, and you don't get rear cross traffic alert in this car either. You have to option the tech pack on the Style, which is about $5 grand to get the fully loaded Skoda Octavia safety systems, and then you're looking at a little over $41,000. So that's definitely something to consider. In this car, the Hyundai bundles more of their safety systems for this kind of price. Just definitely worth looking at, but I've got to say the Skoda's ones that are present are very well tuned and feel great in this car. So that pretty much wraps up how this Skoda Octavia is to drive. That is to say, really well polished, premium feeling, European in the way it goes about its business, and it's definitely a car you should take a look at, even if you're looking at a smaller vehicle like a Golf hatch. The extra space and the extra wheelbase just makes this Octavia a little bit calmer out on the road and a worthy option, and it definitely deserves to be in the Octavia range. It's not totally overshadowed by the RS at all. I really like it. So, what do we think of the Skoda Octavia in base model form? Well, although it doesn't grab my attention exactly the same way as a sporty RS does, the mark of a great car is that it works all the way across the range. And I can say that the base model Skoda Octavia is a fantastic package. It offers great value at $32,990 drive away, and even the $34,490 for the wagon is a really competitive price. It's just a shame that at the moment the Ambition is totally sold out in Australia, which means you need to spend a little bit more on the Style, which is a more complete specification anyway. But the point of this video is that the Octavia works no matter what spec you buy. But of course you can let me know in the comment section down below what you do. Would you have a wagon, or do you like this liftback with its power tailgate? And also while you're down there, we'd love it if you could hit subscribe, the bell icon, and as always, thank you for watching Chasing Cars.